She says, I'm female from Germany. Guten Tag. Wie geht's heute? She says, I'm suffering from SOOCD, sexual orientation OCD, which is HOCD, is a new name for it because HOCD, sexual orientation OCD, hits anyone regardless of your gender because it's not a biological challenge, it's a psychological challenge. Therefore, they changed the name from homosexual OCD because it could also attack homosexuals, heterosexuals alike. So now it's called sexual orientation OCD. It says, I'm scared to be bi. It's not going to come out of the air and suddenly become bi or whatever. So when you say I'm scared to be bi, that means the suggestion has been made to you of this orientation by your brain. And if you were the brain and brain was you, that there was no difference, then you wouldn't have this question. Because no one would have a question when he or she is that what is suggested, and the suggestion comes from him or herself. So if you were the brain, or the brain was you wouldn't have this question. Because you can't be against what you're for. When a suggestion to your mind, to your brain, is that you're bi, let's say, or you change your gender, that suggestion is coming from where? If it's coming from you, then you wouldn't be against it because it's coming from you. You wouldn't question it because it's coming from you. It's you who says that, desires that, and believes that, or is. Then you say it, and there is no contradiction. But when you ask a question, and you say that I'm scared to be bi, that means you are in contradiction to what the suggestion is all about. Which means you're not the source of the suggestion. Which means you are separate from the source of the suggestion. Where's the source of suggestion? Brain. Which means you are separate from the brain. Brain is not you, you're not the brain. That's why there's a contradiction. And the contradiction comes from awareness. Awareness is you. And the awareness, you, recognizes there's a suggestion that is contradicting who you are, what your interest in, what your choices and values and lifestyle is, what your preference is. That's why you ask a question. So you cannot be something that you're not. It's no difference that if I walk in the street and people suggest me that I am something, but I'm not suggesting that, they are. The source of suggestion is not me. Therefore, there's a contradiction. And I question it, but I don't have to question it. I should just ignore it. Because if it was me, I wouldn't have a question. I would welcome it. Ah, great. You know, I like potatoes. I like tomatoes. Great. You know, this and that. But you are the awareness, and you're totally separate from the brain, and brain is separate from you. Brain is an apparatus that spits out suggestions, thoughts. It doesn't know even what it's saying. And it's not consulting with you that, hey, I want to make this suggestion. Is that okay with you? Is that within your values? It doesn't. It just spits things out. Why? Because brain is not an intellect. It just spits out because it's a thought manufacturing machine. It is your job to judge what the brain spits out. Meaning, if it's suggesting this, and obviously there's a contradiction because you don't like it, then you ignore rather than entertain or think there is a message or a mandate in what the suggestion was made by the brain. You simply say, this is not my preference. This is not based on my values. This is not in line with my values. that I hold sacred in my gatekeeper, in my superconsciousness, in my wise advocate. That is where my values are stored and our principal core system of me. I find them sacred and I protect them. And what is in contradiction to those values, you simply ignore. Not to follow, oh, the brain said that, I must be it. No, brain is no different than an intestine. It malfunctions. You get diarrhea, brain also gets different disorders. And it is up to you to help it and retrain it back to what is normal for you. The program, the brain or program of you in the way you are and your values are different in different people. What is normal for you, you got to help the brain to come back to it as it's been or as you prefer. So don't be afraid. You're the boss. Brain is not the boss. You are. You roll in life by the power of your vetoes and your choices, not by the suggestion, thoughts, and ideas and images that the brain conjures up, that comes to your head, or other people utter up, and you're supposed to follow them. Brain is no different than other people. It's not you. Other people are not you either. And the brain is not you either. And you're not the brain. So you don't follow it. You judge it. And says, sexual orientation OCD makes you think you're in love with your best friend. Yeah, it does. I know I'm not, but every time I read about the relationship, my best friend pops into, yeah, that's OCD. Don't make anything else out of it. Pops into my head, or every time when I'm getting a message from her, I get nervous, and I'm always scared that this could mean something, even though I know I'm not in love with her. It always makes me like, no. That is what OCD and sexual orientation OCD is. It's actually textbook of sexual orientation OCD. And the French call it the doubting disease. Of course, they have a little accent. The doubting disease. So, so that's in the name, OCD, the doubting disease. So you doubt everything. And the things pop up in your head because that's how the neurons brain works, comes up with things that is trying to keep you occupied and keep you engaged to, so it will feel secure, because that's what how brain finds its security, but keeping busy and creating havoc, so you will interact with it and it will be occupied, and through that occupation you feel safe, especially when there's a malfunction in the signaling system of the brain, which we talked about it before, in the basal ganglia, in the striatum area, caudate nucleus, which is kind of a lever, supposedly, to act as a lever in automatic cars that is supposed to change gears automatically. So when the prefrontal cortex suggests some nonsense and caudate nucleus, it's supposed to automatically shut that down because it knows about you, who you are, your gender, your values. It shuts it down. And that's why 8 billion people on earth, every single one of them have intrusive thoughts. But every time it shows up, caudate nucleus shuts it down. So they say, ooh, what is that? Then they go about their business because it disappears. But when caudate nucleus is malfunctioning, when such thoughts show up, pops up, as it pops up in every human being's brain, it doesn't get that automatic reaction from caudate nucleus to shut it down because there's a malfunction in the signaling system of the brain, namely in this particular striatum. So what it does, it doesn't dissipate. And the thought that popped up in the head, which is natural, that's what the brain does, it hovers. It doesn't dissipate. When it doesn't dissipate, it keeps coming in and shows itself. You think, oh, it must mean something. It's a message. No, it's a malfunction. Just like in your intestine. When you have a diarrhea, you don't say, oh, it's diarrhea. Maybe it's a message. Maybe I just have always been, looking to have a diarrhea. No, it's a malfunction. You understand that and you help it to heal. Same thing. There's a malfunction in the signaling system of the brain. Now you got to learn how to rewire the brain to come back to what it was originally programmed for you, that is now having a disorder. And then you can correct it through the research that psychologists have done and the rhythm of thinking and how to deal with it, how to understand it, and to separate the brain from you, and then all the other little exercises that you can do. And pretty soon, thought shows up. You recognize the thought to be intrusive. Then you call the thought for what it is. That's intrusive thought. It's not me. That's the brain. It's not me. That's HOCD. It's not me. That's OCD. It's not me. You call it for the name that it deserves to be, and then you ignore it and go about your business, whatever it is that you're supposed to accomplish. And if it shows up a million times, you do the same treatment a million times. Eventually, the brain gets reprogrammed that, oh, this person doesn't appreciate this interpretation of me or this suggestion of mine. So it starts reducing these popping up things. And every time they pop up, you just simply learn how to negotiate. You know how you would drive your car or your bicycle, automatically you just maneuver over puddles, potholes, rocks, shit, debris. You don't think about them. You just go. But they're there in life. They're part of life. Thoughts too, they're part of life. They come in, part of the function of the brain. But you learn, as you train yourself, you become an expert, maneuver, and you don't even notice them there. Why? Because your selection and ignoring process becomes automatic. So that's how you reprogram, rewire the caudate nucleus, the brain, to function as it was meant to function for you. All right. Subscribe on my channel, visit my channel, and go through the videos that you might be interested in. Mind-that-seeks-truth.com is making it one step away to talk to me one-on-one on Skype and discuss what's concerning you. I'll talk to you soon.